Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this month's webinar. My name is Jay Berkowitz, and today we're going to talk about how to get your law firm to the top of Google Maps. Let me just get the slides started here. I need to share my screen. And present. All right, well, hello, Jay Berkowitz from 10 Golden Rules, and today we're going to talk about how to get your law firm to the top of Google Maps. And before I get started with the actual content, I want to go back 18 months, and that was the last time I presented this content about how to get your Google Maps or GMB focused. And I said 18 months ago that Google Maps was the single biggest opportunity in internet marketing. And I said you had about a 6-month window to take advantage of that. And the reason for that is because the Google Maps is the first thing when you do a search, like something like personal injury attorney near me, it's the first free SEO opportunity just below the paid ads. And so it's better than SEO because it's the first free opportunity. And consumers love maps. They love that section. They go there all the time. But as I suggested 6 months ago, the game has changed. And just about 8 months after that webinar, Google introduced this new Google screen. It started testing in Austin, Texas, and San Diego, and now it's rolled out throughout the country. And that's for 3 main categories: attorneys, real estate, and finance. And this Google screen, or what was called local service ads, has also been around for about 2 years for plumbers, air conditioning, locksmiths, guys who come to your home. And that is called Google Verified or Google Guaranteed, because Google actually has a $3,000 guarantee in that section. So the difference between Google Screened and Google Guaranteed is that it's for lawyers, finance, and real estate. And the why it's a game changer. This appears right at the top of a Google search, and it's above the paid ad and it's above the maps. And what Google's done with this, because I mentioned 18 months ago, we had this tremendous opportunity because consumers were skipping the ads and going to the maps. Now, when a prospect is looking for you and they search for personal injury attorney near me, or plumber, locksmith, a shoe repair, whatever the search is, the first thing they're seeing is this certified, guaranteed checkmark thing from Google. And consumers are getting the hang of it. They're starting to say, oh, why would I go to one of the generic results when I can go to a verified screen local service ad result? So this section's also called local service ads. Now, today we're still going to be talking about the Google Maps section. But very important to note, the game has changed. And as I predicted 18 months ago, Google something would change. We had a little window of opportunity. So today I'm going to talk about the windows, some of the new things, some of the cutting edge opportunities, and we're going to focus on the Google Maps section. So, we did a whole other webinar on Google Screen local service ads. You can find that on our website if you click on the blog. But today we're going to talk about getting in this tremendous area called the screened or local or Google Maps, not screened, Google Maps. So what does Google look like? What's the architecture of the geography now? At the top of a Google search, again, same search, personal injury attorney near me, there's the 3 Google screened ads. There's the traditional pay-per-click ads, then the first free result. So you can optimize your Google Maps, or also called GMB, Google My Business, to come up here in this area. Now, the next thing is the SEO. The people also ask, and the organic results. So remember the old Google? It used to be the organic results on the left, the pay-per-click ads on the right. There's a lot of real estate being taken up now by screen, paid ads, maps, and this new section people also ask. What is that? That is basically, if you answer a question the best, Google's going to reward you by putting your answer under this little drop-down. Now, we talked about that in the SEO webinar we did last month called the ABCs of SEO, also available on our blog. But today we're focused on how do you get in this top free area, below the paid, below the pay-per-click ads, and in the Google Map Pack or the 3-pack. Oh, one other note, there used to be an ad in the Google My Business. For the most part, those ads have gone away. Whenever you see the Google screened or local service ads, there's no more ad here snuck into the map packs. We're doing great with those ads, by the way. So also super important, mobile. How does it look on a mobile phone? And of course, over 50% of searches now for things like law firms or any local search, most people are going to do it on their cell phone, particularly when they're out and about. But we're seeing the data, 50 or 60% of people who are searching for law firms and similar local professional services are on mobile phones. So you almost want to look at what does the search result look on my phone, more important than on my desktop. Now the screen takes up 2 positions and then an ad. And then if we scroll down, this is faking out what it would look like if you scroll down. We see the maps or Google My Business. So that's what the environment's going to look like on your mobile phone. So we'll spend some time talking about optimizing for mobile as well today. But really, it's about getting this first free opportunity. That's what we're going to be talking about today, because there's tremendous opportunity. We see this client got 56,000 views, 28,000 queries, 467 phone calls. So we're going to delve deep today into the Google Maps or Google My Business. So before we get into the content, I'll tell you a little bit about me and why I believe I'm qualified to talk about this subject. We'll talk about how to get starting with Google Maps if you're a complete newbie. I'll give you the 3 secrets to getting in the top 3. The 3 secrets to getting in that map pack if you're not already in the top 3, how to get there. I'm going to expose the next hot social media. So everybody's always asking me, what's next? Is it what's after Facebook? Is it TikTok or is it Clubhouse? It's not, and I'm going to share with you the next hot social media to take advantage of. We're going to talk about tracking and analytics, and then some pro tips. Our pro tip section is like the advanced strategies. So if you're really, really good at Google Maps already, you can just, and you're watching this like 6 months from now, you can just scroll ahead in the recording. Unfortunately, today you got to stick with me if you're a beginner, if you're a pro, and go through the beginner stuff. So about me, I come from a beautiful city on the prairies of Canada called Winnipeg, Manitoba. Probably looks kind of like this right now. And it's the home of the Grey Cup champions. So we're the 3-down football world champions, and Winnipeg Jets are looking great for this year. Now, we are, things are going to change, and we're going to see a deep freeze. One day last year, Winnipeg was colder than Mars. So it was super cold, and we got smart, and we decided we're going to move to Florida. And there's my wife, Bonnie, and my little guy, Parker, and we live in beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. Recently became US citizens, very proud of that. I'm working on my 4th book on digital marketing. So my first book was called The 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing, and the new book is all about internet marketing for law firms. Been featured in many, many conferences around the world, and also featured in national media. So I believe I have some credibility to talk about this stuff. Oh, I developed the university curriculum for the University of San Francisco. My company is called 10 Golden Rules. We're a digital marketing agency focused on law firms. So enough about me. Let's get into the good stuff. And how do you get your law firm or any professional services or local business? Frankly, the same principles apply, but our examples today are going to be in the legal category. And how do you get to the top of Google Maps? So if you're just starting out, the first thing you would do is you would search your own business. So I searched 10 Golden Rules here, and we see that I already have a Google My Business. The business is operating, and we have Google reviews, etc. Now, if you don't own your own business, and you would see here, for the most part, like 99% of the time, if your business is registered in your state registry or whatever it is, Google's already found your business and they've already put a listing for it. So it's almost like the yellow pages, they put you in there, but you've got to buy the ad, if you will. Now, in this case, it's free. If you click Own This Business, you can register your Google My Business. So if you can't find your business, you would go to google.com/business and you'd create a Google account, same way you would for a Gmail or anything. and Google's going to mail you one of these postcards to confirm your location. So you have to have a physical location, but they also have a new tool available called local service areas. So let's say you're a plumber or an air conditioning guy and you only work out of your van. You can say, I don't have a physical location, but I go to you and I do that in this local service area. You could define, like, here's the 25-mile radius that I'll go to, and you can also get confirmed or certified and create a Google My Business. So you want to complete the profile, and Google actually guides you through that. It'll say you're 10% complete, 90% complete. You want to complete all the different sections and all these little tabs down the left-hand side. And when you fill in all the sections, you put really good detailed descriptions, etc., and use keywords like you would for SEO, like search engine optimization. And the most important thing you can do is pick the right categories. So not only would you pick lawyer, but you would pick, like, if you're a personal injury lawyer, slip and fall lawyer, there's going to be 3 or 4 different categories. You want to make sure you add those categories because Google categorizes the businesses. And when people do a search, you come up in those categories. So without further ado, this first section, getting started, find your Google My Business. If you're not already listed, verify through the postcard, fill in all the sections, and importantly, make sure you all have all the categories. So if you're only ranked for like one category, like lawyer, you're not going to be coming up for nearly as many searches as you would if you filled in your practice area. Next up, the 3 secrets to getting ranked in Google Maps. So how do you get in that all-important 3-pack at the top of a search? So the first thing is you need lots and lots of reviews. Typically, the firm with the most reviews is going to come up at the top. If everything else is equal, there's lots of other factors like where the person's doing the search, the geography, and we'll get into the other 2 of the 3. But the first thing is you need lots of reviews. And one of the other things we've learned, very important to get a review every week or every 2 a week or 1 every 2 weeks, because the algorithm is rewarding now for recency of reviews, not just reviews. So let's say you were going to email your 50 best customers and ask them for a review. I would recommend you actually send 15 the first week and then 10, 10, 10. Spread it out over the month because you want to get 1 or 2 of them to go and make that review every week. Very helpful for the algorithm. Now, if you're going to ask for reviews, make it super easy for people. So when you create your Google My Business, this is my 10 Golden Rules Google My Business. Right there on the homepage, there's a link called Get More Reviews. And if you click this form, click this button, it's going to give you a short little form, a short little link that you can send to people. And then they go right to this page with the reviews. So you can make it super easy for them. Another way is you can walk people through. You can actually say, go here to my page, click on the reviews, and that will also get them to the reviews link. The next best way to get reviews, I always say this, my clients get tired of hearing it, write a check, get a review. And you don't buy reviews, that's against Google's terms of services. But anything you do that involves writing a check or sending a payment, make sure you get a review. So what does that mean? Well, if you sponsor the local baseball team or cut a check for your alumni at your university at a .edu, especially if it's a law firm .edu and you're a law firm, I always say write a check, get a review. So maybe set up, ask for a favor. Say, hey, I'm going to renew up for the Alumni Association this year, but I'd love you to write a review on my website. The other thing that's really valuable, people you do business with, ask them for reviews. The court reporters or the investigators, all those folks who you write a check for, hey, I'd love you to write a 5-star Google review. You can't force it, but you can certainly ask, and there's nothing wrong with that. The next philosophy for great reviews is what I call the concierge program. Now, some firms actually have a concierge program. And what I mean by this is when you go to a fancy hotel, they're going to have a concierge that's going to take care of every incidental request you have during your stay. So let's say you wanted to, have a special dinner or theater tickets or something like that. You would go to the concierge and they'd hook you up. So what you might do as a firm is start thinking, hey, not only do I need lots of reviews, but I need lots of great 5-star reviews. So you have to start thinking of your firm like a 5-star hotel. Every time someone starts doing business with you, it should be a great experience. From the first time they call, everyone should be super nice on the phone. I mean, someone was like super cheery and helpful on the phone the other day. I was almost surprised because customer service is so bad across the board and everyone's so miserable these days. So if you could stand out and the first time someone calls your firm, they're upbeat and chipper and cheerful and helpful, and they immediately answer your questions and get you to an attorney, that would be the start of a concierge service. And in a lot of cases, you could say, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you over to our concierge. And today you're going to be dealing with Amy, and Amy's going to get you right to an attorney, and she's going to see through everything you need while you're working with our firm and make sure you get all the best service possible. And that concierge is going to work with the attorneys and with the paralegals, and she could be a paralegal, all the way through the experience until the customer gets a settlement, if it's a personal injury kind of case. And in that example, the best time to ask for a review, it could be along the way when the customer's saying, oh, Amy, you're unbelievable. Like, I can't believe how helpful you've been. You guys are the best law firm I've ever dealt with. That could be a good time for Amy to ask for a review. Or right when she has the settlement finalized, she's like, hey, I'm going to be sending you a big check, or you're going to be coming into our office to sign this check. Could you do me a favor? My boss always asks me to ask for a review. I'm going to send you the link. Could you do me a favor and put it in a 5-star review, because you've been saying how great the service is. So that's a really good time for the concierge who's nurtured this relationship all the way through. Another strategy is incentives. And a lot of firms have had tremendous success with this. One of our clients in Tyler, Texas, created a program where every time one of the paralegals or one of the team requested and got a 4 or 5-star review, they gave a $25 restaurant gift certificate to the employee. Now, you cannot incent the customers, but you can definitely incent the employees. And I think I saw someone from Phillips Law Firm on. So Jeff, if you're on the call, Jeff taught me this other strategy to take it to another level. And he said that, after a while, the gift certificates were, people were still doing it, but not the way they were when he first introduced the gift certificates. And he was doing $50 restaurant gift certificates. He added another incentive. Every time someone got a gift certificate, they got a ticket for a drawing at the holiday party, and the drawing was for a $1,000 cash prize. So you got your $50 incentive today, and you got your opportunity for a cash prize with that ticket. The more tickets, the better chance at that $1,000 cash prize. And the other thing they did is they put like tracking on the walls and made it fun and sort of gamified it. So you got to keep it interesting. You got to change it up. One of my customers is adding the incentive because they just did a $1,000 cash prize, and they're adding the incentive piece for the holiday party right now. Another strategy that's working really, really well for most firms is using a company like Bird Eye. Now, you've probably seen this as a consumer. You go to a lawyer's office, doctor's office, even a restaurant, and you get one of those emails that says, hey, thank you so much for coming in. Will you do a quick survey about our services so we can continually improve? And if you rate the company a 4 or a 5, you get a link. They say, hey, can we put your review on Google? And if you rate them a 1, 2, or 3, they still legally, you still have to have, or against Google's terms of service, you still have to have a link to Google reviews, but they're going to make a much bigger issue of getting you to fill in questions and answers about your bad experience and make a focus of fixing the bad experience. So Bird Eye manages all this, manages your reviews, links them up to social media. It's a great tool for law firms, professional services, and most companies. So reviews is the first section. The second thing you can do to get in the top 3 is have consistent NAP, name, address, and phone number. These are my friends in Louisiana, Dudley DeBosier, and they have unbelievably consistent name, address, and phone. So the name of the firm, Dudley DeBosier Injury Lawyers, always injury lawyers, never Dudley DeBosier LLC or Dudley DeBosier PA, always 1075 Government Street, Baton Rouge, and the zip. Why is that so important? Well, here's their Google My Business, right? And they've got that address, and you want to send a signal to Google. When you're in MapQuest, it's exactly the same address. When you're in Yelp, it's exactly the same name, exactly the same address. Here they are in Super Lawyers. So it's super important that your NAP, name, address, and phone, is incredibly consistent. And a lot of firms have a problem with that. Like, you don't want to have suite number 10 and unit number 10 and number 10, hashtag number 10 on different listings throughout the internet. An additional confusion for a firm called 10 Golden Rules. A lot of people are really nice and they link to us at 10 Golden Rules, but our firm is called TEN, 10 Golden Rules. Same thing, but they list it inconsistently. So we work real hard to go around the internet and make sure we have consistent name, address, and phone. Things like unit number, suite number, 10, and TEN can affect your results. Next thing, build local links to your website. Again, Dudley DeBosier does a great job with building local links. They got a link here from this press release about their sponsorship of the Saints. And here they got a link from The Advocate, a local newspaper, about a college scholarship that they created. The next thing that's super important is citations. And citations are listings with no link. So a lot of times your Chamber of Commerce will list your companies, but they won't give everybody a link. And a great example is Wikipedia. If you can get listed on Wikipedia, it's fantastic, it's awesome. It comes up in search all the time, but they don't typically give you a link. So here's some examples of citations where Dudley's listed again, but they don't have a link. All right, so the 3 secrets to getting ranked. Number 1, reviews. Ask for reviews. Don't be shy. Here's another tip. A lot of times, I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about when I tell you the story. You get the call, hey, my nephew is starting an internet company. Can you give him a few tips and advice? Or, starting a company and can you give him some tips for his website? So I take that phone call, I spend half an hour, I help out the nephew, I give him a bunch of free advice. And at the start of the call, I say, hey, by the way, there is a small fee for this. I'm going to give you totally free advice, cutting edge, all my best tips. But at the end of this, I'm going to send you a link to my Google reviews. And I just want you to do a Google review. If I give you some valuable advice, I want you to give me a 5-star Google review. So lawyers get that all the time. You're always giving free advice, and frankly, we all do it. And here's a really good strategy. Ask them for the Google review and send them the link to directly go and make a review. All right, next up, concierge strategy. This is like a mindset thing. Not only could you set up a literal concierge service, but figuratively start thinking about fantastic customer service at each step throughout the relationship. It's so important because you're just not going to get 5-star reviews if you're a pain in the butt to deal with. If you're always putting people on hold, they can never get through to their lawyer, which is the #1 complaint about dealing with law firms. You've got to fix that stuff. It's so important today because, reviews is the #1 thing that's going to get you at the top of the MacPack. And it's not only the number of reviews, it's also your rating. Do you have a 4.9 or do you have a 3.4 out of 5? So you've got to make sure you fix your customer service and your operations in your firm. Contests are great. Now, you can't incent the consumer, but you can incent your team. Make it super easy for people to give you reviews. And the last thing I shared was write a check, get a review. Again, you cannot pay consumers for reviews, but every time you sponsor the local softball team, or you're dealing with a court reporter, Ask them, hey, I'm re-upping my contract, but remember last month I asked you for that 5-star Google review. You got, I'd love you guys to tell everyone on Google how great a company we are to deal with. Next step, now, name, address, and phone. So you want to do a citation check, and we do this for our customers. There's a number of automated analysis tools we use to make sure that everybody who's linking to you, everybody who's listing you, either as a link or a citation, you want to make sure that those are consistent, perfectly consistent. Name, address, and phone, because you're dealing with a computer here. You're not dealing with a person who would know the difference between 10 and TEN golden rules, 10 golden rules. So you want to make sure it's consistent. You're sending Google spiders consistent information. Last thing, local links, getting local, the Chamber of Commerce, your local newspapers, and getting the citations. So either getting an active link, the blue underlined activated link on a website, or just getting a listing for your firm and your address is Google also recognizes that, hey, here's the name of the firm, here's the address, there's no link, but they are cited on an important website. Now, I promised y'all I'd tell you what the next Facebook is. What's the next up and coming social media that you gotta conquer for your local marketing and your local SEO? And a lot of people, when I say this, they say, oh, it's got to be TikTok. Everybody's doing those crazy TikTok dances. And if you've seen the Applebee's story, it's phenomenal. A lot of people think it's Clubhouse. Frankly, I think Clubhouse is going to flame out. It's audio only. It's boring. It's going to only appeal to a niche. It's going to be like podcasting, where 18 to 25% of people regularly participate in podcasting. I don't think Clubhouse is going to be the next big thing. But I would argue that next most important and currently most important social media for business, okay, it's not as much for individuals, is actually Google My Business. What a surprise on a Google My Business webinar. But the reason for that is that Google tried to launch Google+, and they tried to take on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and they flamed out. They closed it, shuttered it, it's gone, right? There's no more Google+. But I think Google realized that they had the makings of a super important, super powerful, competitor in a way to Facebook and LinkedIn for business. So from a business perspective, your Google My Business is a place where you can post photos and videos. And by the way, it's like your Facebook page where your visitors, your customers, and even unhappy customers can post comments and pictures and stories on your Google My Business. Visitors can ask and answer questions just like they can on LinkedIn and Facebook. And visitors can put reviews, right? Just like Yelp and those other sites. So, it's a bit of a paradigm shift, but think of this, Google My Business, I would argue it is the most important social media for business, especially for a local business. Because more people are going to find you here than the people aren't going to be searching for a law firm on Facebook, right? So the opportunity to participate as a social media on your Google My Business is fantastic, because everything you do on there is going to improve the SEO performance and help get you in that top 3 again. So you can update your Google My Business with posts. Now, Google says they only feature those posts for a week. So that would tell me that the algorithm is telling us update every week. So we put posts, things like, hey, we're doing a webinar on how to rank on Google Maps. What a surprise. And here's another tip that Google's thinking of this as a social media. They've added a follow button. So it sounds just like Facebook or LinkedIn, where individuals can follow your company on social media. You can add pictures and videos, and that's a great, powerful way to search engine optimize your Google My Business by adding videos, pictures, events, content, questions. Every single week, we update our Google My Business. Another great opportunity is the Q&A. You can actually bulk upload through some of the tools we use, questions and answers. And what do you think questions and answers are? Well, remember, I talked about the importance of Q&A. It's a critical part of Google's algorithm now. I mean, a Google query, when you type something into Google, you're essentially asking a question. So Google's completely rewritten their algorithm to understand human language and semantics. So every time you have a question asked by a consumer, or every time you upload a question and answer it in your Google My Business, you're essentially feeding questions and answers and keywords into the search engine algorithm. And what we've seen is when you rank for Google My Business, you rank in SEO. And every month we look at the statistics for all our clients. We do a deep dive on the analytics and numbers. And what I see is when someone's creeping up and their Google My Business is getting more queries and more results and more phone calls, their SEO is also improving. Or when the opposite's happening, when we take over a client, we can see that their SEO has fallen off, the regular organic, 10 result SEO, and their Google My Business results have fallen off. So that tells me the converse is true, right? When you goose your Google My Business, when you get more reviews, which are like the links, when you get more content and videos added and events and reviews, your Google My Business improves, your Google Maps listing goes up, and your website also goes up because it's part of the overall Google algorithm, your Google Maps algorithm. So why do I argue that this is more important or like the up and coming business social media? Number one, you can post videos and photos, you add weekly posts, you answer questions, and you can upload questions and answers. And this is like the concept I talk about. If you've been on any of my webinars, I always talk about cascading content. And this is like a super easy way to do all your SEO and social media. Essentially what you do is you answer a question, simplest thing is every week answer a question, basically upload a blog post with a question and an answer. So the title of the blog post is the question, the answers in the text, or upload a video to YouTube with a question and an answer. Take that video and embed it on your blog and write a description of what the video is all about. So when you do that on a regular basis, you're feeding SEO into your regular website SEO. But then you're also going to take that video or take that blog post, take that same information and cascade it onto your Google My Business. And we also put it on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. So it's a super easy, super effective way to keep your Google My Business updated. Every week, answer a question on your blog, on your YouTube, super effective for SEO, on your website, and super effective for SEO on your Google My Business. The next section, we're going to talk about performance measurement. So this is the kind of data that we look at every month for our clients. This is awesome. They got 56,000 views overall. So that's a combination of direct queries, indirect queries, map views, search views, website visits, phone calls. And they got 28,000 queries, which is awesome, 467 phone calls. And we see that number improved from month, back from August a couple of years ago, up or 1 year ago. We've really improved the number of phone calls by all the work we did on the Google My Business. Now, I want to differentiate between a direct query and an indirect query. Both of these are good, but the best ones are the indirect queries. So a direct query comes from a direct search. So let's say I put in the exact name of the law firm. Well, their Google My Business is going to show up, and that's an example of a result that we would get in the data, one of these direct queries based off of the direct name search or like the brand search. So it's a similar search. Google's not 100% sure we're looking for them, but it's close enough because we're searching for one of the principals and they come up in a Google Maps result. So that would score another one in the analytics. Now, here, next would be like an indirect query. And I call that like discovery. So here I just search for personal injury attorney. And these guys who came up in that search, they got a Google My Business indirect result, right? So when someone's searching for your brand, you better come up, right? Like I always say that, if someone searches for your exact firm name, like, J. Berkowitz Law Firm, J. Berkowitz Law Firm better come up. But if somebody's searching for personal injury lawyer, this is what this whole webinar is about. how do I come up in indirect queries when somebody's searching for personal injury attorney near me? This is the money, right? This is the #1 free result that you would see. So additional data we get, the discovery queries. So like in this example, this firm got 5,208 discovery queries. The direct ones are in the green, the blue ones are in the blue. And so the direct, so in this case, they got more direct, like more people searched for their name, fewer people came up in those discovery queries, and then a few did like the super branded queries. So you get this data in the back end of your Google My Business. The other thing that's super important, I showed you, we were able to measure the exact number of phone calls. So we use CallRail for call tracking, super valuable to set up call tracking so you know how many calls came from SEO, how many came from Google My Business SEO, how many came from your paid ads. So we use CallRail. There's a number of different services, but CallRail is kind of like the 800-pound gorilla in legal. And then we know exactly how many phone calls we got. And as we're improving, we can track that over time and then understand the difference between direct queries, brand queries, and discovery queries in your GMB. So the last section here I call our pro tips. And these are kind of some advanced things that people don't generally think about. Also super important. So increasingly important. And as a matter of fact, Apple in the last maybe 3 months has improved the whole Apple Maps setup. So Apple Maps is starting to look a lot more like Google Maps. And a lot of people who use Apple phones, obviously Apple, defers them to the Apple result. So if you don't actually change your search to Google search, they just default you on a search result to the Apple Map search. So it's also incredibly valuable to go over there, like get everything done in Google, spend 9 hours on your Google setup, your Google GMB setup, because 90% of search overall is going to be on Google. But then go and set up your Apple, spend some time on your Bing. Also, some search queries are going to default to Bing. Yelp is super important. Obviously, Yelp is massively important for restaurants, but also becoming more and more important for every single business. So you want to set up your Yelp. And here's another, what we call pro tip. This is a tool we have where we can actually show you how you're performing outside of your geo. So like this is a search for one of my friend's law firms, and he's in Gainesville. He's absolutely #1 right here at his office location. And he's actually pretty good north of his location, but he's not as good south of his location. So this is something you can work on in your GMB. Now we're talking about like advanced pro tip level stuff where this is like even over my head. My guys work on this. My SEO team have become very good at the micro SEO. So what this means is if you're right at his location, he's the #1 map result. But this tells us how you're doing outside of your immediate location. Because when you search for yourself, you better be coming up in that map pack right in your office, right? Because you're literally, the proximity is right there in your office. Here's another search for like personal injury lawyer. And this tool allows us to look for different search phrases. So a lot of times what we'll see, like this guy was doing a lot better for car accident attorney, but he's not doing as well for personal injury lawyer. So that's where I stress the importance of the categories and the content, your description, the keywords that you include when you set up or when you update and modify. And SEO, like we're always doing ongoing search engine optimization, we're doing SEO on an ongoing basis for the GMB. Now this one is like crazy advanced. When I said these are pro tips, you're going to have to call me for this one. This is like almost like a search engine trick, if you will, where if you type in personal injury attorney, CONN, the Google search suggest fills in the rest of my client's name, and the #1 and dominant result that comes up for personal injury attorney Connecticut is my client. And if you click on that result, you're going to see only him, right? Because you literally searched for him. You didn't think you were, right? You thought you were searching personal injury Connecticut and clicking on the first result, but you actually got his website, 3 of his locations, his Facebook. Here's another listing, some kind of business listing, and his LinkedIn. So literally, you're going to dominate the search results with this tactic. I'll send you a link to set up a meeting with me if you want to find out about this one. Another pro tip: be very, 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 very careful of trying to fool Mother Nature. So a lot of law firms and different businesses have been trying to trick Google by setting up fake locations. This is the worst example. This is obviously not a law firm. There's no signage on the door. And if you put your address at this location and you were able to retrieve the postcard, this is bad for 2 reasons, right? Number one, if you came up in a Google listing at this location and the customer came here, they'd be confused. And customers can actually go and complain now on the Google listing. But you're just basically trying to trick Google. It's against their terms of service. It's going to wipe you out. And what happens, even if you have like the Regis locations, and I know lots of you do, those are those shared office, like a WeWork, where you're able to get mail at that location. You're able to meet customers at that location. And by the way, you probably do really meet customers at that location. But Google's basically said it's against their terms of service. If it's not a staffed location where, remember, Google Maps is still about maps, right? Like people are using it to search on their phone or search on their computer and find a business in their local vicinity and go to that business, right? So if you're trying to fake them out with like a WeWork or a Regis, and they go to the Regis and they're like, well, I'm sorry, this is by appointment only. These folks aren't really here. They come here for meetings, but they're not here today. Somebody got in their car, drove down to the Regis, thought they were going to call in this law firm or a doctor's office or a shoe repair, and you're not there. So again, there's a philosophy behind Google's reasoning, right? That why you can't fake them out. And then if you do, we've actually taken over some disaster scenarios and helped clients fix their suspension. But guess what? If they suspend your Regis location, they're going to suspend all of your locations and you're going to lose all your maps traffic. So that's why I say it's not nice to fool Mother Nature, right? Which means, you can never win with things like the power of weather and stuff like that. You can't win with Google. Whenever you do the black hat tactics, trying to cheat Google, going against their terms of service, you run into trouble. So here's some possible solutions. One of our clients, congratulations, just bought the building. So they got a new location, they bought the building. They're going to have a small office in the building, but they did it as an investment, but they also physically own the building. Another pro tip is called Google Street View. This used to be like a must for Google My Business. It's still a bonus. Basically, if you go here to google.com/streetview/hire, you get a professional who's certified by Google. This individual will come and they'll take a picture of your website. They'll also do the interior called Google 360, and then they will post that through their certified account. So it's like when Google sends you the postcard, they're verifying that you're there. They're verifying you're actually at the location. You can take mail, right? Same thing with sending out someone to shoot photography at your location, and that Google certified individual uploads that photography and those videos. They're certifying that you're actually there. And here's a Google 360 we did with my friends in Texas. Another way to get good local links, what we're doing is some sponsorship activities. So this is actually a tool called ZipSprout, and you can find local people who take sponsorships for local events and things like that. Talked about that earlier. Write a check, get a link. Local baseball team, local health conference, the Low Country Splash, and the medical conference. You can sponsor all these folks and get a link to your website, to your Google My Business. Location schema. So again, talking pro tips, talking advanced here, but basically every page on your website can have a schema. What is schema? It's like super advanced code that tells Google immediately what that page is all about. So instead of the search engine spider trying to read all the page, read all the code, and try and figure out the page, they'll see the schema, which is written in a format that's designed for the search engines. A number of search engines came together and created schema. And basically you can add the schema code to your website. Location schema is probably the number one schema that you want to do. You want to always respond to reviews, super valuable. Basically, you're telling Google, hey, we're paying attention to our customers. We're active. We're engaged with our Google My Business, and these leads are great. So always I've been talking about the red phone lately. I think Ronald Reagan used to have a red phone in the White House, and when the Kremlin called, you wanted to make sure you picked it up in the middle of the Cold War. So that I've been talking about the red phone and the importance of answering the phone. So we learned this from the new Google screen. That remember I talked at the start about the local service ads right at the top of Google. If you don't answer calls within 15 seconds, you can get out of the top 3 in the Google screen. Now, everything I've ever seen about Google, whenever Google has a service and has a philosophy, the same thing applies across all their different products. And they actually call them products, and they call them product managers. And you can see all the Google products on their website. So one of the first examples of that was when, oh, sorry, I just lost the idea. It was, anyways, the example I used earlier. When your Google Maps SEO goes up, your overall SEO goes up. Oh, here's the example I was thinking of. Google introduced something called quality score in pay-per-click in Google Ads. So your quality score is on the paid ads. It's not like SEO, but it's like SEO. So what is quality score? Well, do the keyword you're bidding on, like if you're bidding on personal injury lawyer, does your ad include the word personal injury lawyer? And does the landing page include the term personal injury lawyer? So you have to have like SEO on the page. The page has to have the keywords like search engine optimization, like Google SEO for organic. The Google SEO policies and strategies apply for pay-per-click. So basically we're seeing that super valuable. Answer the phone, improve your Google My Business. It's going to improve your overall SEO. And if we know for a fact that you got to answer the phone within 15 seconds on the Google screened ads, same thing for Google My Business calls when someone clicks on the link on your Google My Business. So some of the pro tips: optimize other maps, Bing, Yelp, and really important now, Apple Maps. Do not use virtual offices, buyer beware. Do the Google 360 where you get the folks to come in and take the pictures in your locations. Track your calls and track all your data with the data setup we showed. And at the end of the day, engage with your GMB. Do a bunch of these things. Don't try and do them all tonight. This webinar, we'll send you a link to the webinar recording. You can go through with your SEO team or your internal folks who do this. Make a list. I probably gave you 20 or 30 different ideas of what you can do to get in the top 3 to increase your ranking in Google My Business. And make a list and check through it. Some of them are going to be things you want to do every week. Some of them are going to be things you can do one time, and you check that one off the list. So to wrap up, I thank you for your time and attention today. If you're watching this sometime in 2023, thank you for coming back to the future with me. And I'd love your recommendations for speaking opportunities. One of the things I love to do, hopefully you could tell today, is share information about digital marketing. And if you're involved in planning, I spoke at the Virginia Trial Lawyers Association and met a bunch of great friends and did some business with some of the folks up there. If you're a member of your bar association, Trial Lawyers Association, or even your local Chamber of Commerce, today we do it on Zoom. In the future, we'll get back on planes, but I'd love to speak to your group. If you'd like more information about this stuff, if there's anything in here that you haven't been able to figure out, or you're trending in the wrong direction, please give us a call for a free marketing audit. Maria will put a link to our Calendly in the chat, and if she doesn't beat me to it, I'll do it in a second. And the last thing I'd ask as a favor, hopefully you got some value out of this, and if you did, I'd love a 5-star Google review, and I'll also put a link to our Google reviews in the chat. I see Maria did it. Thank you very much. So with that, I am going to just wrap up and then take a few questions. So in conclusion, how do you get started if you're not listed? If you've never heard of a Google My Business, your business is probably listed on Google. Click there that says I own this business. Claim your Google My Business listing. Fill it out to 100% and get your categories. That's super important. The 3 secrets to getting ranked. Number 1 is reviews. Number 2 is reviews. Number 3 is reviews. I mean, super important to get lots of reviews. And as I said, we've now learned it's more important to get 1 or 2 every week than to get 8 at the end of the month. And number 2 is NAP, name, address, and phone. And number 3 is local links and citations. If you have those 3 factors, reviews, current reviews, all your NAPs accurate, and you're always building local links and citations, you're going to see that you're going to get into that top 3 more and more often. And you'll see that data in the tracking and analytics that you can see from Google Analytics. What I showed you came out of Google Analytics. So you've just got to set up and connect your Google My Business and your Google Analytics, and then you can get all the data I talked about on direct and indirect queries. We talked about the importance of the new social media. I argue that Google Maps or Google My Business is the most important social media for business today. Google's treating it like their own social media hub. They've flailed out on Google+, and now Google My Business is a place where you can add photos, you can add events, and people can even follow your Google My Business, where they're going to get those updates that you're adding to your Google My Business. So it's really functioning like a social media, and you can't treat it like an afterthought. I mean, this is, I'm always on my team about it. Sorry, guys, about the importance of updating our clients' Google My Business and updating our 10 Golden Rules Google My Business. So every week when we upload information about a new webinar, or we write a blog post about how to do something, that blog post goes on our website, on our blog, it goes on Facebook, it goes on Twitter, it goes on LinkedIn, it goes on Instagram, it also goes on my personal Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and it also goes on Google Maps, Google My Business, because every week you should have an update on there at a minimum. So that's it. Happy to answer some questions, and hopefully help y'all out. So let me just get over here to my, and you can ask questions in the chat, or you can put them in the, I think there's a Q&A function too. Yeah, the Q&A function's there. Love it if you just say hi to me as well. I see Maria put the review link in there, so I'd love a 5-star review, and if it's 2023, I still want a 5-star review. So what you do is you go over to search 10 Golden Rules on Google, click on our Google My Business under the reviews, and add a review there. I love you for it. And also the Calendly link, you can see my calendar and you can book on my calendar. So I'm happy to do a free audit of your digital marketing, and Maria and I will dig into your SEO and look at your competitors, and we'll show you how you're ranking for SEO and pay-per-click, and also the Google My Business. So let me get to some questions here. The first one is, please explain the difference between screened and maps. Okay, so Google Screened are paid per lead. They're the 3 boxes now. So go do a search right now for personal injury lawyer, and you're going to see the first result is 3 boxes, or if you're on your cell phone, 2 boxes. And if you click those, if you're on your cell phone, you click to call, that person's going to pay for that lead. If it's a personal injury click, it's probably going to be, between $100 and $300, depending on the market. It's expensive, but it's an actual lead. And let's say the person's, calling looking for a divorce lawyer and you're a personal injury lawyer. You're not going to pay for that lead. If there's no recording, you're not going to pay for that lead. So super valuable. So the Google screen is now these new paper lead results at the top of Google. There's 3 results, but they're sideways on your desktop, and there's 2 results and they're on top of each other on your phone. And then the maps, next up is the paid ads, and next up is the maps. So Google screened or local service ads, they confuse everything with 2 names and LSAs. So people are calling them LSAs, local service ads. Those are the pay-per lead. And then the Google Maps are the free maps results down the page. Okay. Oh, Peter, hey, buddy, my cousin's on. What's the difference between direct and branded search? Good question. So a direct search, one example of a direct search is when someone puts in your exact address. So we're at 2701 Northwest 2nd Avenue, Suite 106. If someone put in our exact address, Google would call that a direct search. A branded search would be if they searched for 10 Golden Rules, or 10 Golden Rules digital marketing agency. Google would consider that to be a branded search. So a direct search is things like the exact address, or combination of partial name and city or something like that. I didn't create a Google My Business, a GMB for my business, but I found it on Maps. How can I take the ownership of the listing? Okay, good question from Carol. So essentially, it's what I showed right at the start. So if you search for the name of your company and it's coming up, there will be a link there that says own this business, and it's like question mark, and you click that link, and then you go in and set up your Google account. Google might ask you to verify, and then if you can confirm that you own the business, you take ownership of your Google My Business. So pretty easy. Just search in Google for the name of your business. If there's a listing there that you didn't create or somebody else created, you can take ownership of that. How often should I post on Google Maps? Another good question. I would say, I guess I would answer this the way Matt Cutts answered this when I interviewed him for my podcast. And Matt, for many years, was Google's search engine representative to the search engine community, spoke at all the conferences. Technically in-house, he managed their spam team for SEO spam. And I asked him the same question, how often do you need to post if you really want to do well in SEO? And he said a really good strategy is the apple a day strategy. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, the old expression, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So, it's basically eat your fruit and veggies every day, and it'll be a good strategy to keep you healthy. Same thing on Google, an apple a day, basically add a piece of content every day to your website would be awesome. At a minimum, I would say once a week. So Google says that they'll only keep those posts up for a week. So if you add, I think that's a good philosophy, that if you add a post every week to your Google My Business, that's a win. If you add, a post every week and a video every week, and an update of some kind every week, a picture every week, then you'd have 3 a week. That'd be awesome too. What happens when I move to my Google listing? That's a really good question. So if you move your location, and we recently did this for a customer, it's super important, like 1,000 times important, that you do the following things. So number one is I would change your address on your website first. So like the day you officially switching over to the new location and closing the doors to the old one, if you are closing doors, you want to change your website, and then you want to work super hard to change all those NAP listings and citations throughout the web. So there's some automated tools we use to do that, or you can, sort of do it by hand, reaching out to people like the Chamber of Commerce, and you can log into things like your Apple listing and your Bing listing and your Foursquare listing, and make those changes. And so the first thing is changing your website. Second thing is changing everywhere else that you're listed. And then, basically just staying on top of that. But one of our clients made the move, and then obviously, that once you change all of that, you're going to change your Google My Business, the most important one, right? But first, like, change it on your website, because Google links to the website to verify that. So change it on your website, change your Google My Business. Here's a pretty good tip. I mentioned briefly, there's a thing called local service areas. So if you have a local service area, and meaning you work out of a van, like a plumber or a air conditioning repair guy, one of the things you could do is, if you changed your location, set the old location up as a local service area listing and create the new location as a new location. And that gives you the opportunity to take advantage of both. So that would be a niche opportunity for, like a plumber or someone, one of my buddies has a flooring business, and he works out of a van, and they have, different samples of, carpet and hardwood flooring that he can bring into your home. But, he literally doesn't have a location. He works out of this stripped up van that has all the tools and Parker, you met Parker earlier, our little dog. Parker, his groomer, closed his physical location during COVID, and now he works out of his van. So that would be examples of, you could still get listed by this new local service area. And really only in the last couple months, Google's really fleshed that out, and they've differentiated between locations and physical locations. One thing that they're going to have to fix, though, I heard, is some of the things they insist that you have to have a physical location, like if you do brake repairs and things like that. But you could still have a mobile brake repair operation, probably pretty significant. So some of the categories you cannot have local service area, meaning you have a Google My Business listing but no physical location. Let me take a couple more here. If I don't have a website, can I create a Google My Business? Well, it's a great question for two reasons. Absolutely, you can have a Google My Business without a website, but Google My Business actually has a Google My Business website creator. And this was recommended to me that you actually should use that function. So again, you're gonna do all the basic things in your Google My Business first. Add photos, add descriptions, add categories. There's like 20 things they're going to walk you through. But then, when you run out of things to do in there, on the left-hand side, you can find the create a Google My Business website, and it actually builds a little website for you. And I created ours. It looks terrible, and I played around with it a little bit, but I was told it's a valuable link, because it's like a Google created website that can link back to your Google My Business. So some people say don't do it if you have an existing, high quality website. Some people say do it, but if you don't have a website, hey, there you go. There's a Google created website, so it's going to be search engine, friendly. Google's going to like it right out of the gate, and so that would be a super easy way to create a website. Like, as a matter of fact, if you have a business and you have a location and you create a Google My Business and you don't have a website and you don't have time or budget to create one yet, I would create your Google My Business website before you create a Wix website or something. And then once you have the time or the money, I would create a WordPress website, which is, for 40 or 50% of new websites that are created today are built in WordPress. And it's like really good because the search engines love it. And there's like thousands of guys and gals who know how to work on your WordPress website. So that's the other reason to create your website in WordPress. You see, I'm looking at all the chats, see if there's any Q&As here. No one's using the Q&A, so let me do one more. What is SEO for GMB? You mentioned it a few times. So it's a good question. So basically, like, SEO, search engine optimization for Google My Business. I talked about the importance of, like, if your SEO improves in Google My Business, your SEO improves in your regular website and vice versa. So SEO in your Google My Business. So, in the webinar we did last month, we talked about SEO as the ABCs of SEO: the architecture, the backlinks, and the content. So the architecture of your website are things like, is your website fast? Is your website easy for the search engine spiders to read? Is your website, does it have a good navigation? Is it easy for consumers to navigate? Because Google's actually going to analyze it through their analytics, and they're going to feed that back to their sort of rating in the mathematical algorithm of how your website architecture is structured. So your Google My Business architecture is, when you build that Google My Business, build it, fill out 100%. Do you have 100% completed of your Google My Business listing? Do you have photos? Do you have videos? Do you have listings? Did you do a Google My Business website? And complete all the architecture and the build of that Google My Business. So the ABCs: A is architecture for websites and for GMB. B is backlinks. So the backlinks to your website is if another website links to your website. So another website has a blue underlined activated link that says, https://www.10goldenrules.com, and it's activated. You can click it, and it links over to 10 Golden Rules. I would argue that the links on Google My Business are reviews. And so the way you get link juice in your regular website, you get the Google My Business reviews are the link juice for your Google My Business. And finally, content: architecture, backlinks, content, ABC. The content, I talked about different things you can update. You could upload questions and answers. You could get customers to ask you questions and answer them. You could answer the questions that customers are asking. You can upload posts. You can upload events. You can upload photos, videos, and you should do that on a regular basis to regularly search engine optimize your GMB. Well, I think that's it for today. How are we doing on time here? We are at 1:10, so we just ran over slightly over an hour. So I want to thank you all so much. I'd love you for a Google review. Maria put the link in the chat, and Maria, let's send that out with the recording as well. And as well, if I can answer any questions, we do a free digital marketing audit. It's awesome. We'll show you your maps. We'll show you how you're coming up on Google Maps. We'll show you that great graph with the 9 little dots on how your Google listing is doing outside of your immediate location. And we'll look at some competitors as well. So again, thank you so much. And good luck getting to the 3-pack, the top of Google My Business.